Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology debunking mythology. Sat means truth, logos means a study or science. Sattology means the science of truth or study of truth. Mythology, on the other hand, myth in Sanskrit means it's a root word for fake, lie, or imagination. Therefore, many Sanskrit words like mithya, mithya, hankar, all these words come from myth, root. Just like in any other language, etymology talks about that. When you combine with logos, it becomes a science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. This word was first used in 1844 against the ancient Vedic scriptures. Now, Ayurveda comes from there, yoga comes from there, there are a lot of numbers come from there, all those ancient sciences, which even the medicinal science of operations come from there, to be precise. That's how deep that knowledge source is. And most surprising thing is, most of the Western academic institutions don't call their history as mythology. So today we have a very, very special guest, one of my very old friends. And, he helped me in teaching. He taught me yoga in a classroom settings. And I always inspired by his consistency over the years. And he also won the title of the most flexible yoga teacher, the Yoga Olympiad. And I think one of the leading persons in trying to bring yoga to Olympics. The 12 great Olympians will have more Olympians on this category also. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Zeb Homison. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Zeb, how did you start this yoga journey? And now you're at one of the top people in the US. So how did you start this journey?
Thank you for saying so. Yoga has been in my life for a long, long time. I remember back when I was very young, walking around the house, and my parents would, on occasions when something would happen and people got a little bit ruffled at the house, like we would actually chant ohms together. And when I was pretty young, my brother would go off to school, and I remember like doing yoga postures out of a book with my mother when I was, like 5 or 6 years old. So, it's been in my life for a long time, but I didn't really, I took a yoga class in college. I didn't really start my practice until I was in my late 20s, and I was a little bit lost in my life. I left New York City. I lived there for a long time, and I was like, I'm going to find something new in my life. And so I was couch surfing, kind of visiting friends. And at the time I was in San Francisco, and I stumbled into a yoga studio there, and I was like, I like San Francisco. I think I want to stay. And I started looking for some job opportunities, and the yoga studio there was hiring. And I just sort of like, the universe was just like aiming me towards in this direction. And I started working at the studio. I started practicing there. And within the course of like 6 months, I was like, this is what I need to be doing. And so I found the next teacher training, and I was just sort of like on my path, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, the first hang of Hatha Yoga I did with you. Before that, I used to do only Surya Namaskar, but all the different postures you were training in that setting. So you are one of the leading in Pittsburgh. I think you're leading the revolution, the vegan side also. Your sister is also into that veganism. And yourself, you're also practicing it.
We're really trying to promote like a healthy lifestyle here. So I own the yoga school, Yoga Factory here, and my sister and I have opened this like raw juice bar where we serve vegan food and raw juices and smoothies. So we're trying to educate people about healthy lifestyle and about yoga and what that means. Mm-hmm.
So the word yoga is a very deep meaning. Like everything is like, there is a one Sanskrit line. It says yoga karmasu kaushalam. Like I can read Sanskrit and write. which means the yoga is the art of doing work. And I saw you holding one time a Bhagavad Gita also, and one of the
Yes.
pictures you put on the Facebook or somewhere. So, do you think that has solidified your philosophical understanding of yoga?
Um, yoga philosophy runs really deep, and it's ancient, as you know, reaches back thousands of years into the mists of time. So my understanding of yoga philosophy, I feel like I'm in kindergarten, and even I've been practicing for a long time now. I've been really digging into the asana side of things, the yoga posture practice. And I feel like people in the West, especially in the States, but I think any like outside of India, and we look at yoga sort of as, doing some fancy postures, getting flexible with a really bendy teacher somewhere. And it's so much more of that, so much more than that. So my understanding of yoga philosophy, like since I became a teacher, it's been this ongoing process. And every opportunity I get to learn more, I'm just like, I'm soaking it up. So, when you were a student of mine years ago in Pittsburgh, I remember like you gave me one of my first copies of the Bhagavad Gita, and I was like, this is great. I had read through it maybe once before you had given me that copy, and I was like, thank you so much. And it just kind of sat on a shelf for a while before I actually picked it up and started to absorb some of that. And I really think the philosophy, the deep wisdom we have to be ready to absorb that. We have to be at a certain point in our lives where we can actually hear it. That makes sense?
Oh, yes, perfect sense. That you touched upon a very important misconception also right now. You can speak about it. I cannot, because you have the most flexible. You have the perfect asanas. I've seen that. So one of the things which you spoke was yoga is not just about flexibility of the body. Anybody can do yoga. It's not that you have to be flexible to do yoga. Once you start doing yoga, you become flexible. It's a reverse way. But you also talked about, and I'm combining the second question also there, asana. Now, asana in Sanskrit means a platform of stability, and that's what asana is. Now, that's the Sanskrit meaning of asana. So, now we are talking about stability in your posture, and gradually it comes to the mind as well. Now, that's how the science works. Science is all experiential. So, in your experience, how do you debunk this wrong notion that yoga is about flexible? You need to be flexible to do yoga.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a super common misconception. And I think the best way to debunk it is for yoga teachers. And this is really hard because yoga teachers in the West are really focused on asana. It's what we learn, it's what we're taught. And so until we start going deeper, until we start expanding our knowledge and our library of places that we learn, it's hard for yoga teachers to speak to the deeper things like yoga philosophy and the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita and stuff like that. Like we have to be able to study it ourselves before we can go out and teach it. And that's something that, like at my school, I've really started to try to shift the focus. I still think asana is important. And I think it's, especially for Westerners, it's the gateway to starting to listen to yourself, to understand yourself a little bit. And, yoga, I've heard it kind of explained sometimes as sort of a science of self-realization.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, we start to know ourselves, and it's important to be comfortable in your own skin, to be out of pain as much as possible in your body, to be able to breathe expansively. You know, before we can start to really like sit and meditate and go deeper and start to try to find out who we are, we have to be able to just sit comfortably.
That's right.
And I think yoga postures, really, that's the goal. Just to open the body so the body, it becomes a non-issue when we start to try to go deeper and understand ourselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because the asanas is the basis of yoga, because asanas are the platform of stability and you cannot
Right.
ignore it. It's like if you look at the hierarchy which is mentioned, is body, mind over the body, intelligence over the mind, and atma above the intelligence. So that's the hierarchy which is mentioned there. So unless your
Mm-hmm.
body is not healthy, you can't reach the mind, which is difficult. So
Exactly. And I think a lot of people all over the world are stuck in pain in their physical body, in the material world around them. And we're sort of stuck in this loop, in this cycle, this samskara, if you will. And it's hard to get out of that cycle, to start to really notice ourselves. But really, that's the goal, right?
that's the goal. And I think that namaste became very popular during the pandemic times. No contact.
Right. Namaste. Yes. Yeah. It's the perfect way to give a greeting, you know, without shaking hands, without possibly transmitting something.
And also there is, I think you also told me one time, there is a science behind namaste also. So when you fold your hands and the palms are meeting, is one of the, again, a small part of an asana, but it is still some kind of a posture, which really helps for connecting both the palms together, right?
Absolutely. There's definitely an energy there. You know, in the practice of Qigong, it's all about like building and focusing that your personal energy. And you start with just right between your hands.
So another factor is your yoga factory, Pittsburgh Yoga Factory. Beautiful name. It's an industrial town, so it has to be yoga factory. And
Right? That was the theme.
and so you are. It's a very cold neighborhood. Like it's as compared to where I live, San Diego. It's very cold, much colder than that.
Yeah,
And
our winters get, you know, below freezing quite often.
and so when in so many years of teaching yoga, what is the one thing which you saw which is very easy for Americans to pick up in yoga?
I think, and tell me if I'm answering your question right. I think the postures, the asanas, even though I think a lot of Americans look at yoga postures and they're like, I'm not flexible enough. I could never do that. I still think the postures are the easiest part of yoga for Westerners to get a handle on, because it's moving your body. And that's something that we kind of understand. It's something that we can like set ourselves a goal and then work towards that. So, like you said, posture asana means stability, right?
Okay.
I've also heard it sort of translated as like a comfortable seat.
Yes. Yeah. Platform.
So,
Yes.
working towards that as an idea, like, you know, when you're balancing on one leg, doing a posture, or when you're upside down, and, you know, some of these postures can be pretty uncomfortable at the beginning. And so it's like, how am I supposed to be stable in this? Or how am I supposed to be comfortable? And that's that's the practice. Like over time, the more and more you practice and the more and more you do the work, you start to become comfortable in those weird, uncomfortable positions. You start to be able to figure out how to breathe and slow down your breath when you're doing something that's challenging. And as you learn that in the postures, in the yoga room, wherever you're practicing, you start to be able to apply those skills to the rest of your life. And so your yoga it starts to go out and apply to the rest of the world. And I think that's really like when we start to get those realizations, then we start to be able to, again, notice ourselves within that and be a little bit more calm in everything that we do.
No, the word religion comes from religare. Ligare was Roman legions. So religion is a kind of religare French term, but basically comes from Latin, from the Roman times. It comes joining back the armies of the Roman legions. That was the religion. Anyone who is left out is the religion is to come back and join back the army. Now,
fascinating.
The word play is like the more I'm reading, getting into it, it's amazing history of different words, how different words have come out.
Yeah, I love it. I love like researching etymology of words. It's fascinating. I love it.
The word hymns in the poems and everything is the origins is the same as hymen. It's like I don't know where it is connecting there. It's the same. Is fascinating. Like when I said that hemoglobin. Now where does the hemoglobin? Well, how did it start meaning red? And there's someone who is a linguist, lives in Vancouver, told me that it's a hymen, same thing, hymen, hemoglobin, like all these words. And religion
Yeah,
word, when I found out, it's like joining back the armies. And oftentimes we confuse spirituality with religion. It's two different aspects completely. One is
for sure.
connected to you and another is told to you. They're two different aspects,
Yep.
So how, and there is a lot of propaganda, where I'm leading to right now, a lot of propaganda. Yoga is a religion or is a Hindu religion. Well, uh, the word Hindu is also a
Made up.
historical word, and
Yeah.
it's based on the region, not based on the people. Now,
Right.
it's the concept of dharma, comes in, which is yoga related mostly, which is a logical sense, a rightful sense. Now, how uh, unintelligent is to connect the word yoga with religion, according to you?
Hmm. It's a fascinating subject, and anytime you touch on religion, things start to get a little bit, people get emotional about it, which is understandable. It's very meaningful for a lot of people all over the world. Like religion is very personal. And so if something comes in that might threaten that very personal and dear thing to you, you get a little defensive about it. And I think because the origins of yoga are foreign from the United States, or foreign from like a Western perspective, I think it threatens a lot of people that are a little bit uncertain, like, what is this thing? Is it a religion? And I think you're absolutely right to sort of separate the idea of religion from spirituality. Like,
Absolutely.
we are all spiritual beings
Yes.
at the end of the day, whether we're Catholic or Muslim or Hindu or Sanatana Dharma or, whatever, Buddhist, any other of the many religions all over the world. Every human being has a connection to spirit. Like you said, the Atman earlier. And like, that's just one term for it, the soul, or whatever you want to think about it as. Like, we've all got that. We've all got a connection to a higher power, whatever we want to call that. But yoga really doesn't teach to any one religion.
Correct.
It's just, like I said earlier, you're starting to turn your attention inward and notice yourself. And when you start to really dig deep, and the ancient yogis teach that we all have, the term they use is atman, which I think the best English translation might be soul, an inner self, our inner spark. And then we also have what they say is a param atma, which is a connection within ourselves to that higher power. Whatever that higher power is to you. So to people that are, frightened that yoga is a religion or it's going to steal people away from their faith, whatever that faith may be, my only retort to that would be that, if anything, building a yoga practice and building a deeper connection with yourself is going to build a stronger connection to God, to your faith, whatever that is.
No,
and I know there are a lot of people out there, like we were mentioning earlier, the lawsuits in several of the states, I think Alabama, you mentioned Ohio, and how people are scared to the point where it's like we're trying to ban yoga entirely, maybe in schools or in workplaces or whatever. And to me, that's just a little, not to be offensive to anyone, but it's a little bit silly, because again, it's just like the more you practice, the deeper connection that you're going to get.
And to yourself, we like to groom our hair in the mirror every day, but we don't do any grooming for our soul.
Exactly.
And that's what yoga stands for. It has nothing to do with anybody's faith. You can have faith in a stone. I don't care. But yoga will just make your stone. I have a joke over there. Hard rock is a rock star. I said, playing a rock music under the sky, stars, is rock star. It's a different. Or playing a musical instruments on a rock is a rock star. Okay, anyway, but yoga is mentioned as the art of doing work, because you become better connected with the self. And like you said very well, that when you connect with yourself, you're automatically most productive. German soccer team was given special yoga training, and look at their performance. They won the world record. They won the World Cup after 32 years, coming in the finals. They won it a few years back. And
I remember that year. Yeah.
And the other Olympic teams, I've heard that many American athletes. I live in San Diego near Olympic Training Center, and most of the athletes practice yoga. Most of them. So, one of the things they say, that yoga doesn't damage your bones. And physically, like if somebody has weak knees or weak ankles, they get rejuvenated with yoga asanas and practices. So what is your view on that for a sportsman? I live near a place where I meet the national American archers, everyone. So
yeah,
in that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching for almost 15 years now, and I've worked with, professional athletes. I've known, professional golfers that use yoga as their secret weapon. Like, they wouldn't tell their teammates or their friends that they practice, because it gave them such an edge in their game. The scientific reason, like the medical reasons behind it, yoga, the practice promotes more blood flow through the body, more the breathing exercises that we do, you rush more oxygen into your system. So you're flooding your body with oxygen. You're allowing body parts to heal. And a lot of physical therapy practices that are like given to people are really just yoga postures or yoga moves that have been modified for a medical terminology. So I'm going to say a lot of yoga practices are very therapeutic, and you can absolutely recover from injury, feel better, get more energy. There are, just like any other physical activity, there are certainly ways in a yoga practice that you can overdo it, that you can push yourselves and even, create injury. But if you're really practicing mindfulness, if you're really paying attention to yourself while you're practicing the asanas, then it's really difficult to create any long-lasting injury. You're using like muscle contraction along the long bones of the body, which I believe is isotonic exercise as opposed to isometric. So like you said, there's not a lot of impact. It's good for bone strength. It's good for muscle. It's good for flexibility. So many reasons to practice. And if you're looking at it from a more esoteric sort of standpoint, when you're practicing yoga and practicing pranayama, the breathing techniques, the breath that you're focusing, the ancient yoga teachings say that you're actually building more prana in your body, which is sort of life force, like you hear the chi in some other Asian practices. And when you build more prana, you just have more vitality for everything else that you do.
Yeah, the yoga touches those parts of the body which physical exercises or gyms cannot touch. We have seen that inner ligaments and inner muscles, the core strength. The body may
Yep.
apparently look not buffy, but it has more strength. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Instead of building bulk, which a lot of times those big muscles are really just scar tissue from like doing these repetitive exercises, and it just gets bigger and bigger. The long, lean muscle, it's very, very strong. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's just like building a bamboo rope. Bamboos are small stratas, but when they're tied together, they have far more resilience and strength. They can pull an aircraft, they can pull anything. That's how strong they are. So that's how the muscles get intertwined. And even though the body may look leaner, but it is far more fitter and more strong.
Absolutely.
So this is the last discussion, and I love talking to you, speaking to you. I know you're a man of few words, but
yeah, we could talk about yoga all day though.
So the one of the last points which comes to the mind is the mind over the body. And that's where you mentioned a very important word called vayu. You mentioned the air, prana. And it is a very ancient wisdom that if you control the air flowing within your body right through the nervous system, that is one of the purposes, scientific purposes of yoga, is to make your body in peace with itself, with you. It's like a machine. In a machine you put oils at every joint, but here you have to make the air circulate. So the mind factor comes from pranayam, which is the breathing, which is also covered in most of the asanas, also there. Like, breathe normally, so many things you speak over there. So everyone talks about controlling the mind. Everybody, mindfulness is a buzzword. And it is intrinsically connected to yoga. Now, they don't talk about yoga, but they talk about mindfulness. How impractical is the idea of controlling the mind without regulating your body?
It's pretty impractical. Like, people that try to sit and meditate, like sit still and meditate without any sort of training or yoga discipline, it can be like, if you've ever tried it, it's really difficult. Your mind just flits off in so many different directions. Yoga, the root word, I believe, is yug, right, in Sanskrit. And it literally means to yoke, like the yoke of an oxen, like bringing them together. And so the action that we're doing in yoga is bringing together, binding together the body, the mind, and the spirit. So it's a holistic practice. And like we were talking about earlier, if you're not connected to your body, if you're in pain or just feeling low, whatever reason it is, it's really hard to really focus and access the mind, which is why, I mean, there's so many different regimens of physical fitness, like go to the gym, do whatever you need to, do your online class. But all of that is so that we can have more energy for everything else that we do. The great thing about yoga, like we were talking about earlier, is that it's not, your asana practice isn't as hard on your body as a lot of other physical exercises. And it's something that you can maintain and even build on for your entire life. There are yoga masters that are, in their 80s, 90s. There are stories about yogis living in the Himalayas that are like hundreds of years old. Who knows if that's true? I've never met one, but I really like the idea. And it's all through, just building a consistent practice, yoga practice, and maintaining it. There are some days where it's like, I don't really want to step onto my yoga mat today. But we build this discipline, we build a practice that we can do on a daily basis, and then we stick with it. And when you do that, you really start to discipline the mind as well. And when, I think it was Paramahansa Yogananda that said, a person that has reformed themselves can reform thousands of other people. Like if you can create that self-discipline for yourself, you can do it for so many other people and help them on their path as well. And I think now in the internet age where we have screens that we can talk to each other across the planet, you could reach millions, but we've got to do the work on ourselves.
That's right. That's right. The proof of pudding is in the eating. So
Absolutely.
just don't look at the jar of honey, take a spoon and put it in the mouth. Try it. And one of the things which you said, that the root word for yoga comes from yuj.
Huge.
Yuj. So many different words come from there. Yoga, it means to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Connect. And the word yoga comes from there, and different yukta comes from there. Yukta means yoga, yukta. So many different words come from yuj dhatu. And the second word you said, dhira. Dhira means one who has vacha vega, manasa krodha vega, jiva vega, one who has controlled his mind, controlled his speech, controlled his belly and genitals, and that person can make disciples all over the world.
Yes.
It's a very deep philosophy, and also it also connects with the core founding principles of America as well. People were self-controlled, so that you are, like you said very rightly, that if you control yourself, you can you don't have to control others.
Yeah.
You'll be a good example for others.
That's hard work, and nobody wants to actually do that work. Like, what do you mean self-discipline? I want to go have a pint of ice cream right now, or whatever it is. Like, we're so used to just having everything that we want at our fingertips, especially like with Amazon now. We can just like click a button. We don't even have to get off our couch. We can just order it. And so to actually have to get up off your couch and do the work, to actually get disciplined, to focus your mind and your body, that takes a lot for somebody to actually commit to. It's not an easy thing.
No, it's easy to buy an ice cream and a burger at a burger joint, but the repercussions are much worse. You don't know what you
Right.
yeah,
For so many reasons.
so many reasons. One of the studies found out the mental diseases. This is an old survey, 2017 actually. I do this whole day and night, so I remember the statistics nowadays. Now I remember all these things. 27
Hmm.
statistics said that USA, New Zealand, Norway, and Ireland, and these are the countries, and in South America, Brazil, Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, they have the highest mental disorders, and these are all developed countries. And along with them was one country in the Middle East called Iran. And
Hmm.
these are all the
So
countries.
what's the connection?
The connection was they had the per 100,000 of the population, they had the highest mental disorders, above 600, 600, above 600 per 100,000 of the population. And in all these countries, the diet is, and the happiest countries were Vietnam, Cambodia, who have no, I mean, they're comparative poverty. And India,
Yeah.
Bangladesh, where there is a, now all the countries which had least mental disorders were the countries where they had practices of yoga and meditation inbuilt into them. And the countries which had the highest mental disorders were the countries where the yoga somehow, people have made it a political point. I say political point unapologetically. When they connect it to religion, it's a political, purely political. So as compared to both the halves, we have the scientific report that the mental disorders are higher in those countries who neglect their self. And yoga is the only exercise which connects you to the self. No, there's no other place. No, there's no other way. So
Yep.
what is your view on that? How we can make now this a more acceptable practice? When anyone tells me I'm a liberal, I say very good for you. Let's do yoga
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. You know, we mentioned it a little bit. You were joking about it a little earlier, how I'm sort of a Olympian yogi. And I take that part of my life very lightly now. But there are people that are still running yoga competitions all over the world. And it started in India, but it's been a movement to sort of like grow this idea of competing with your asana practice. And I know this is a little political. People get upset about the idea as well, because it's like yoga is not competitive. What are you trying to do? But even Sri Iyengar, BKS Iyengar, was he was a proponent of this. He said, asana is the only aspect of yoga where you can compete, but you can and you should, because it helps people. You build awareness of yoga. When somebody sees another person practicing yoga, practicing asana, it lights a little fire. They're like, what is that? Something in that speaks to me, and maybe I want to try it. Maybe it's a little intimidating, but people get curious. And once that flame is lit, there's no putting it back out. We start to want to connect. So the idea of a yoga competition really isn't about people winning a gold medal or being better than the next person at their yoga. Because it's a competition, that's a part of it. But the way I always looked at it was, if we could get yoga into the Olympics, it would give yoga a worldwide platform. And, you know, kids would want to start practicing yoga. People would start building a disciplined yoga practice because they want to compete. They want to try to do that thing on stage. And all of a sudden you have this like momentum that would grow awareness of yoga all over the world, even more than it is today.
No, that's a great point, and I always supported that idea because then that's how it grows into the mainstream. The many countries, there are countries who ban yoga, but yoga is a people's movement. Anyone who does
Mm-hmm.
yoga gets benefited. So
Yep.
the most of the congressmen who were opposing yoga, state legislators who were opposing yoga, they all go to yoga schools. Prime Minister, all of them, their mothers go, or their sisters or wives, somebody is going in the family. It's
Right.
like it's one of the healthiest thing you can do to your body. And in fact, when the Prime Minister Modi gave a speech at the US Congress in 2015, 2016, maybe, or 2016, 2017. I'm forgetting the dates, but he spoke that 30 million Americans do yoga every day today. And that was 2017. 2021 must be
Yeah.
much higher because of the pandemic.
I would guess everybody's been inside for a year.
Isn't that the best time for the ecology, environment?
Yep.
I never saw so many birds out in San Diego as I
The
saw
birds were
this time.
so happy.
So
They're like, all the humans are gone.
the first week when there was no traffic in the lockdown, I saw birds which I've never seen. Believe me, I live in an area where it's very green, and I saw birds with long teeth. Where were they hiding all the time? Probably I never looked up. So that's
Right.
so it was a great
That's
introspection.
another part of the pandemic that, looking for silver linings. It, it I feel like it gave us an opportunity to actually, look up, to slow down for a minute and take stock of our lives and what we're doing. Like, if we're always just going so fast, trying to do the next thing, get to the next place, sometimes we can drive ourselves a little crazy. And that's another thing that yoga sort of teaches us. Like, we're trying to live in the present moment. If we're always living for tomorrow, then we're never really enjoying right here and right now. And that's what it's all about.
There's so much to talk to you on this, and it's your favorite topic and mine too. And so I definitely support the idea of a competition, because that's how you said the right thing, that goes into the mainstream and people can look at it in a much more different way. Moscow, city of Moscow has American trainers going there and training them. They have 3,000 yoga studios. 3,000 yoga studios is in Moscow.
That's amazing.
And Munich has almost like 1,600 yoga studios, and a couple of them also. I know some people from your studio also went there. So like, it's filled up. It's the growing people's movement. I always call it a people's movement, and rightfully so. In Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, there are 17 yoga studios today, and North Korea, the capital, has just opened 3 more new. And so it's the point has come that all the yogis in North America, my roughest estimate is 50 million every day. And more than 200,000 teachers in America, 200 to 500,000, between that, because everybody, they learn few asanas, they become a teacher nowadays. So
right. It's very, very low entry level for becoming a teacher now.
So,
but that's okay. I think the more we spread yoga, the better.
Yeah. So
I have a question for you.
Please.
I don't get a lot of criticism, but every once in a while something pops up on like Instagram where somebody's criticizing because I am obviously a white man and I'm teaching this Indian art, and they're like, well, that's cultural appropriation. What do you think you're doing? And I'm always trying to be sensitive to stuff like that. But like you were just saying, like, yoga is a people's movement. And I really feel like, from everything that I've learned and listened to and read, that the yoga masters from ancient India and all over have always been trying to give yoga away, trying to share it with as many people as possible. And so I wonder, what are your feelings about that? Is there some sort of cultural appropriation going on, or is it really this people's movement that we need to keep going?
So I'll tell you a historical aspect actually, because that's what I focus on. Yoga is the first exercise given to a human, to all, and nobody can debunk me because I have 7 books to prove it. So they can read my books, search Sattology on Amazon, you'll see all my 7 books. Now, but yoga is the property, is a birthright, just like you breathe air, of every single human on the planet. And that's what Sanatan Dharma stands for. Every child, when he's born, he is neither a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian or Jew or whatever. When they say Jewish soul, with no offenses to anyone, this is a very stupid idea. Soul is a soul is a soul. You cannot have a Jewish soul or a Hindu soul or a Muslim soul. It's not. They learn where they are born. There's no fault of theirs. Wherever they're born, it's their natural. They have no control over there.
Mm-hmm.
So Sanatan Dharma is the Dharma of the soul, and yoga is the first exercise of the soul. So if you look from that point of view, keeping aside all kinds of religious prejudices, then yoga belongs to everybody. And I'll tell you one history is South America, in Peru. I think you have been to Peru. And there is on the
Mm-hmm.
coast of Peru, there is a mountain called Candelabera Mountains, very famous. It's a Vedic symbol that is mentioned in Ramayana in India, ancient Sanskrit text, and it is mentioned that the ancient sages used to go on top of the hill, perform yoga. It's mentioned. Now that text is, no Indian can refute it. That text is thousands of years old. People are debating on which year it was there, but nobody goes below 12,000 BC. Nobody goes below that. It's beyond that. So we are talking about a very ancient practice when there was no Christianity, no Judaism, no Islam, no, nothing was there. So it is our cultural, it is our combined spiritual heritage. So I don't think all the you need to throw those criticisms into the garbage trash bin.
I usually try to reply nicely, and then I throw them away.
Generally, you should do just a block. That's it. But anyway, you're a good teacher, so I know you do not want to do that. But sometimes I got also the flack that why you support. I said, you have no idea. This is yoga, and Sanatan Dharma is beyond any faith because it doesn't teach you. Nobody tells you that you become a Hindu today. You're born a Hindu. Nobody tells you. So it's like that. Nobody is going to tell you you are a spirit soul. You are a spirit soul. What to speak of that? Anyway, all these temporary ideas will disappear with time. And one thing also, the yoga is also the mother of martial arts. Everybody knows Kalaripayattu comes from yoga. So when all the bodhisattvas and everyone who took from Kerala was a huge school, Kalari means a Vedic school, and Kalaripayattu, they took it from India. And even today, Taekwondo dojos, they regularly say Indoi. Indoi means our origins are from there. It's the irony that Indians have forgotten about it. We have to remind them.
Yeah, I just learned that in a lot of, I think it's jujitsu. I'm not sure which martial art actually, but one of them, they actually do like a whole puja for Hanuman, like before they start their practice.
That's right.
Every time. Yeah.
All the heroes of India were yogis. Hanuman was a yogi. There is a Hanuman Dand. Hanuman Dand is there. A specific exercise you do, which is very much will be called a, I forgot the American word for that. I forgot, just skip my mind. Anyway, there is a Dand for Hanuman. And look at Baba Ramdev. They are not saying we're teaching to Indians or Americans. They just teach to everybody and free.
Yeah.
There's no, the point is, and also it is also allowed in the Vedics to make it commercially viable. Also, it is also allowed. So there's no fault. So just throw all this criticism into the dustbin. We have to just speak on doing the right thing. No, it's a pleasure to talk to you always, as always. I know. And also, I was not joking that he was, you can check it out, Zeb Homison, ZBHOMISON on Google or YouTube. You'll see actually Zeb Homison was a champion Olympiad in the Olympiad, top two or three, or number one, two, one time. And he did appear in Pittsburgh Magazine. So if you are in Pittsburgh, go to Pittsburgh Yoga Factory. And if you are anywhere else, you can always join Sattology and we'll connect you there. And if you're going to Pittsburgh, do join there for one session, two sessions. And thank you.
Absolutely. And we're online now too, so you can join us there.
Yeah. And follow them on Instagram and a lot of wonderful teachers. I still remember Sharon, some of the teachers we had.
She's still with us.
Oh, look at that. And she runs a kids yoga.
Yep.
And focus on small children. And it's
got to start them young.
Yes. Catch them young. And this is it. This is a great culture. But thank you, Zeb, for coming on the show. I really appreciate.
It's an honor to be here. It really is. It's so good to talk to you.
So thank you all, viewers. This will be available on YouTube also. For those of you from the college campuses who watched it live, go to the YouTube and spread it out. And the link for Zeb's Pittsburgh Yoga Factory will also be there, so you can check it out. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Namaste.
Namaste.